What's going on, Spurs fans? I am the masked Spurs Nation 87. I'm here to talk about the Spurs Game 1 of the 2015 NBA Western Conference Finals. The San Antonio Spurs 92, the LA Clippers 107. But before we get to talking to this video, I've got a special guest with me on the Google Hangouts. All the way from Corpus Christi, Tom, the Spurs dude. What's going on, Tom?
Hey, what's going on? Oh, just trying to get through this loss. I'm still smiling.
That's good, man. You always need to keep your head up. The Spurs may be down, but they're not out. But anyway, when we talk a little about this game, Thomas, the Spurs mainly lost this game because of lack of defense. They really didn't do too well on rebounding. You know, it was just they were just almost getting practically pounded on the boards. It was just a horrible shooting night. You know, very bad. You know, free throws that were crucially missed that could have changed the game around. And what else? Just turnover after turnover after turnover. Just turnovers in this game were just terrible, man. But mainly it was just the poor shooting. You know, and I know you saw the game in as much as I saw it. But in this game, I mean, I really don't know what to say right now. But, you know, hey, the Spurs had a bad shooting game. I mean, with the, you know, honestly, with the way how I think the loss is because with the days they had off, I think it just threw them off of rhythm a little bit, you know. And then also how the way I saw Danny Green play, I mean, he was trying to go, you know, try make shot after shot, but I mean, man, he was just not making nothing. And then Kawhi Leonard, I mean, I really don't know what happened to Kawhi Leonard. I mean, I really thought he would have been aggressive, but obviously he didn't really show too much aggressiveness in that game. And then Tony Parker did everything he could. I mean, he did pretty well in that game, but it still wasn't enough. And then Tim Duncan tried doing all he can, but I mean, there was just no rhythm, no like, you know, offensive rhythm going on with him. But also mainly, and I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm not trying to say, you know, the reason why the Spurs lost, but it's because also, I mean, the Clippers got away with so much stuff, Thomas. I mean, you talk about the Clippers flopping. I mean, just, you know, all these really ugly fouls that the Clippers committed. You know, with Matt Barnes practically throwing down Aaron Baines, and then he's just being completely tortured, man. I mean, it's just inexcusable. But you know what? Enough about me. I want to know what your take on this game one was.
Well, yeah, just like you had said about the Spurs, you know, the reason why the Spurs lost this game was also it was just their poor offense. They just couldn't get it going. They just they were missing a ton of shots. They missed like about 32 uncontested shots. These were shots that were being given to them by the Clippers. It's not like the Clippers were playing defense. And they were, you know, there was a couple of possessions where, you know, DeAndre Jordan had a couple of blocks in the game. The one block where he blocked Ginobili. But that was more of an off-balance type of shot. It wasn't really a legitimate shot. Ginobili was trying to, you know, just hurry and rush his shot and get it to beat the shot clock. And, you know, he just threw it up, and DeAndre Jordan, you know, he's tall. He's 7 feet tall. He jumped up and he blocked it. But for the most part of the game, you know, the Spurs just couldn't hit anything. And to me, these are the type of games where, and we talk about it all the time, the Spurs, whenever they lose like this, it's because they beat themselves. Not so much what the other team is doing, but more what they're doing. Because I guarantee you, if half those shots went in, they could have won that game. It's not like the Clippers were playing great defense, because they weren't. They were playing okay defense, But for the most part, the Spurs just missed a ton of shots, and they were all uncontested, a lot of them. And you're going to have games where they just don't fall. Danny Green took, in my opinion, took way too many three-pointers. That to me, and this is why I always talk about Danny Green. I always say this because it's true. He's got to develop his game a little more. Now, I understand he's proven to be a great three-point shooter, but whenever the shots are not falling, he's got to drive the ball into the painted area. As good as a three-point shooter that Danny Green is, he should be throwing pump fakes, getting defenders off their feet, and driving into the basket for an easy two. I mean, he just doesn't do it. He's more of a stand-up shooter, catch-and-shoot guy. He's not one to create his own three-point shot. You know, he can't do a step back the way Manu Ginobili does his, you know, or he'll step back and hit a three. Danny Green, that's not his game. His game is, you know, just catch and shoot. And if he's not hitting, he's basically ineffective. But that's the reason why I always say Danny Green has to change his game. He needs to adjust to what the defense is giving him. If you're not making your shots, you got to drive in and get some easy points. And try to get to the free throw line, because most times, often than not, when you get to the free throw line, just seeing the ball go through the basket will make your shots from the outside. A lot of times players need to see the ball go through the hoop from the free throw line, and then that later on it improves their outside shooting. Basketball is such a mental game more than it is. It's all mental. Even Michael Jordan used to talk about this. It's a very mental game. If you believe you're going to make the shot, you're going to make the shot. But you have to play with confidence. But, you know, whenever, you know, shots aren't falling, normally it's contagious. And, you know, for the most part, that's what I think happened. It just – no one could hit anything. Even the easy shots weren't going in. I'm talking about there was a possession where the Spurs literally had 5 tries and they couldn't score within 5 feet around the basket. These are mental errors. I mean, and it's not the defense of the Clippers. It's just the mental errors that the Spurs were making in Game 1. And they just didn't play Spurs basketball. It became a one-on-one game. And that's what I always talk about. When you're playing against teams like the Clippers, you can't play one-on-one. You have to move the ball. You have to get a great shot. You can't just go one-on-one with these guys. That's what they want you to do. That's what Jamal Crawford wants you to do. That's what Chris Paul wants you to do. You have to do the opposite. And when the Spurs move the ball, they have no problem beating these Clippers. They have no problem beating any team in the NBA. But when they start playing lackadaisical, things like this happen. And Game 1 was just one of those games where they just didn't play the right way.
Yeah, and that's true. And Thomas, that's what we've been talking about. This Spurs team needs to play Spurs basketball the way that Pop has taught them to do. I mean, all they have to do is just keep moving the ball. And we've talked about this so many times. We've talked about it on here. We've talked about it on Facebook. We've told everyone that when it comes to the Spurs winning games, all they have to do is just play Spurs basketball. Like I said, we're just keep moving the ball, keep making the opposing team's defense work, try to wear them down. And until when you can no longer pass and somebody has the ball and they're wide open, take the shot, but be confident in your shot. You know, and you know it's true. If they had made more than half of the shots they made, they could have won the game. You know, and also the way how I saw them play in that game too, they looked like they were a little bit. Well, I normally really wouldn't say scared, but they just looked like they were just like a little bit shaky out there, you know. And yeah, and it's true. I'm not talking, like I said, I'm not talking down on the Spurs because I don't do that. We don't do that. We're just stating the facts of what we see because we watch the game. We see exactly what goes on, you know. And this Spurs team has to play with a lot more aggression. I mean, if there's a loose ball and they're trying to get the ball, I mean, there shouldn't be two players going after the rebound. I mean, all you see is just like once the ball like bounces off a rim, they're trying to get. They're just like they're trying to like take control.
Volleyball.
Yeah, like they're playing scared. Like if somebody's gonna come behind them and just take the ball. No, don't be scared. You see that ball, grab it, or hold on to it until you see one of your players open and grab it, and then give it to him. Get back down on your side of the court and get ready to set up a play. That's all you have to do. And
Yeah.
with the way they played last night, I mean, when they played the other night, they didn't show that. Like I said, they just played scary, especially with that. I don't know what quarter it was, but I know it was Duncan and Green trying to go after the ball. It was almost like they were like trying to like tussle for the ball and stuff because they just looked like they were scared, and you can't do that. That's what causes mistakes like that to happen. And not only that, you end up turning over the ball. So you got to not play scared. I mean, you gotta play tough against this Clippers team. And you know what? I heard Antonio Danos the other day on what was it?
ESPN.
Yes, ESPN San Antonio. He said that this Spurs team can't beat this Clippers team because they're still a team that's immature. They're not mentally tough, and they really don't have that championship mindset. Because you think about it, the first time when they went into the playoffs, which was 3 years ago, yeah, they got through what was it, the Grizzlies in the first round, but then they ended up getting swept by the Spurs in the second round. And then the following year they get bounced out the first round, and then the following year they get bounced out in the second round by the Thunder. You know, if this team was really that mentally focused on wanting to win an NBA title, they would have done something about it. But they're just not. They're still not ready to win a title yet. That's why this first team, they're trying to do everything they can to repeat. That's what they're trying to do. Okay, but with the way they play us, with the way they play in game one, it's not gonna prove anything. But I know come game two, they're gonna make some adjustments because for one, they need to do a much better job at guarding Chris Paul and stop leaving him open. And they really need to do a much tougher job on Blake Griffin. So even if you have to have the other guys, the other Clippers players take shots, let them. As long as you keep Griffin and Paul out of the game, that takes away the Clippers' confidence. But what adjustments do the Spurs need to make in game two in order to tie this series up?
Just everything you just said. They have to contain Chris Paul better, and I think that in game two, that's going to be Kawhi Leonard's job. I think Pop's going to have Kawhi Leonard on most possessions guard Chris Paul, because we've seen what happens when Kawhi Leonard guards Chris Paul. He can get under his skin. He can get steals. He can prevent a lot of those pick and roll plays that Chris Paul likes to set up with DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin. Those pick and rolls turn into lobs and easy points in the paint. I think if you put Kawhi Leonard on Chris Paul, it'll stop most of that. And when the Spurs do their job on the defensive end, it leads to offensive points, scoring. That's what they have to do. They have to change something. If Tony Parker can't get it in, and also Patty Mills should have been in the game more, in my opinion, game one, when he was making shots. For some reason, Pop sat him down. I don't know what the deal was that. If you're not going to play Patty Mills, at least play Corey Joseph. But Tony Parker, when he's having a game like that, you got to take him down. You got to sit him down because he's only hurting the team if he's out there and he's doing absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
I mean, he did do good, but he wasn't guarding Chris Paul the way he should have been guarding him. And you have to be on that guy because that guy creates so many opportunities for his teammates, scoring-wise. And you got to get the ball out of Chris Paul's hands. You can't let him be the playmaker. Make Matt Barnes beat you. Make J.J. Redick beat you. Make anyone else beat you, but don't let Chris that beat you. You got to make – and when you do that, you disrupt the Clippers offense because the Clippers offense is predicated on Chris Paul.
Exactly.
Everything that they do is because of Chris Paul. If you take Chris Paul out the game, you take Blake Griffin out the game. Why? Because what do you always see about Blake Griffin? This is what I always tell people about Blake Griffin. He's overrated. He's athletic. Yes, he's an athletic power forward. But damn it, when it comes to making a simple post move, he looks like Kwame Brown at times. I saw him post up. I saw Blake Griffin try to do a simple, basic post up move on Boris Diaw. And he couldn't do it. We're talking about Bobo here. We're not talking about LaMarcus Aldridge. We're not talking about Dwight Howard. We're not talking about Kevin Love. We're talking about posting up on Boris Diaw, the big croissant land walrus from France. Blake Griffin couldn't do a simple post move on that man. And I looked at that play about 10 times. People actually think this guy is a great power forward. Listen, he's athletic. He can jump for lobs for days. But damn it, if I had the same athletic ability, I'd be doing the same thing too. That doesn't mean that I'm the best power forward in the game. That just means that I'm athletic. Yes, he's developed his mid-range jumper, but other than that, when it comes to the simple post-up plays, it's like, Blake Griffin, what are you doing? Listen, Blake Griffin is as good as his athleticism is. But if you take Chris Paul out the game and you disrupt Chris Paul's passing and pick and roll situations, I guarantee you the Clippers in the half-court setting are ineffective. The Spurs need to put them in that situation, and I guarantee you they will beat the Clippers. Not only beat them, they should be able to blow them out because they've been able to do it. They've done it before. It's not like they haven't done it before. They just need to play the right way, and then they'll do it because it's a game. But you have to eliminate. You have to understand who you're playing against, what they like to do, and then you have to make them do the opposite. That's how you beat good teams.
Exactly. And you remember the series that the Spurs had with Dallas last year, right?
Yes.
Remember how when Devin Harris and Monte Ellis were giving the Spurs so much problems until finally, when it came down to Game 7, they finally just got pissed off and they said enough is enough. We need to get our defense on those two guys. We need to focus on those two guys. And if we shut them down, that Mavericks offense is going down with them. And did it happen? What the adjustments made? Did it happen? Yes, it did. Yeah, it was a tough series. I give the Mavericks, even though I don't like the Mavericks, I give them their props because they gave the Spurs a hell of a series than any other series the Spurs have ever been in with the Mavericks. Okay, I'm being honest. Okay, I give props where props due to the Mavs. Okay, but at the end, the Spurs were just the better team. They made adjustments, so they put Kawhi on Monte Ellis, and then they put Danny Green on Devin Harris. So it worked all out for the Spurs at the end. And not only did they beat the Mavericks, they completely blew them out of the shoes, out of the AT&T Center, straight back to Dallas. And you know what? This Spurs team needs, with the series they have with the Mavericks, and the way they played Mavericks in Game 7 is the exact same way they need to play against the Clippers in Game 2. You know, the way Kawhi Leonard, and you're right, Kawhi Leonard needs to be more good on defense, and he needs to do everything he can to lock down Chris Paul. And it's true because, like you said, you know, Kawhi Leonard locks Chris Paul down, then the whole Clippers team, their confidence and their shooting goes down with them. So as long as they can do that, they'll win the series. Of course, they're gonna win the series, but we're gonna take it a game at a time. So yes, they will win game two. Like I said, I really thought the Spurs would have had game one because if they did, they would have at least won it in five. But I still go with Spurs in six.
Yeah, I mean, and also getting back to that, that series with Dallas, this is what the Spurs need to do. They got to get more physical in game two. They need to get a lot more physical with the Clippers.
Exactly.
Aaron Baines. Now that Blake Griffin did those dunks on Aaron Baines, he needs to look at that and use that as fuel and motivation and say, you know what? I'm not going to let that happen again. What Aaron Baines needs to do is use his body on Blake Griffin, and he needs to send a message to Blake Griffin. I don't care if you got to knock him on his ass and call his mama. You make him think twice about trying to dunk on you again. If you're that big, listen, listen, this is the playoffs, and the NBA really, they need to let these guys play because some of these calls that I've been seeing on both teams is a bit much. It's the playoffs, and this is why we talk about every year. A lot of NBA fans talk about this. It's a softer league, this era. A hard foul and it's immediately a flagrant foul. Listen, if you're a big guy and you're battling with another big guy, that's not a flagrant foul. For the love of God, of everything holy in this blue planet, let them play. If you're not going to let them play, then why are we even playing these games? No one wants to see this. A foul. It's the playoffs. Let them play. The refs will always want to dictate the game. They always want to call. Listen, I understand as being an official, it's a hard job to do. You have to make the right calls, in an instant. But at the same time, there's a lot of ticky-tackness that shouldn't even be called in the playoffs. Now, I understand you want to prevent altercations and fights and things of that nature. Yes, that's understandable. But calling ticky-tack fouls just because one guy's one guy's trying to, battle for position in the paint. That's the way the game's supposed to be played. If you're not going to let them do that, then why are we playing these games? Why don't we just have the point guards and the guards battle this thing out, and let's just take away all the centers because there's no point in playing those guys if you're just going to call silly ticky-tack fouls. I don't care who they're calling it on. And a lot of these fouls that they call on their brains are ridiculous. Yeah, he shouldn't reach in sometimes, but he's a big guy. He's rugged. He's tough. And if these guys can't take it, then they need to sit their asses down, because this is the playoffs. You're supposed to play physical. In 2005, when the Spurs played the Seattle Sonics in Game 6 in Seattle, that game was so physical. I saw Danny Fortson throw an elbow into Manu Ginobili's face, and they didn't call crap. It wasn't even a flagrant foul. It wasn't even a common foul. They didn't call squat dibbly doo. It was physical. And that was the same series that Jerome James from the Seattle Sonics said, I don't respect the Spurs. I don't respect them at all. And guess what happened to Jerome? He got hurt and he lost like a big dummy. You big dummy. That's what the Spurs need to do with the Clippers. They need to play more physical. Aaron Baines needs to put Griffin on his ass and send a message.
Yeah,
send a message.
Exactly. And you know what? Not only does Baines need to put Griffin on his ass, but he needs to put his ass in check, saying, hey, you did this before once. You've done this before. You're not going to get away with it again, boy. I don't care if you're younger than me or if you think that you're the whole enchilada. You ain't going to get away with it this time. And, it's Spurs. And it's true. The Spurs need to get more physical. They need to be tougher than the Clippers. They need to be that San Antonio Spurs bad boys that the way they were back in the 04-05 season. That's the Spurs that we need to see. If they can
Yep.
bring that bad boy out of them, I can guarantee you that this game, this series will be a lot. I mean, we'll put so much pressure on this Clippers team that the only way that they'll be able to beat the Spurs is just to get away with a lot of dirty crap. That's the only way they're going to be able to get away with it, just to beat the Spurs. And that's their only way. That's their weapon right there. Playing dirty is their weapon. And yeah, people can say we make that. We all Spurs fans make excuses. We don't make excuses. We call it as we see it, but they don't see that. They see what they want to see, just because they think that we're full of crap and we have no idea what the hell we're talking about. Well, you know what? If we didn't know what we were talking about, we wouldn't be calling exactly. We wouldn't be calling a play out if we didn't know what we were talking about. And another thing that really pissed me off is on one of the dunks that Griffin did on Aaron Baines. You can clearly see when Griffin tried dunking on Baines, and then Baines had his hands up just to block him, and then you see Griffin pushing Baines' arm down just to dunk on him. That was one of the plays that pissed me off so bad. And
Blake Griffin, he does have a habit of using his off arm when he does do dunks, and this isn't the first time I've seen him do it. He's done it multiple times. He did it on Pau Gasol. He did it on. There's a lot of other dunks that I've seen him where he's gone up, and yes, he's athletic and all, like I said earlier, but he does like to use. He separates himself. That's the reason why he's getting a lot of these dunks off, because you separate yourself with the off arm. Yeah, that creates space between you and the defender. Of course, you're going to dunk on the guy if you're separating, if you're using your arm. It's and the one dunk on Baines, I think that first one, Baines really, he jumped late. He rotated late. Griffin was already in the air. He was going to dunk it whether Baines was there or not. I don't really consider that a facial. I consider it more as a guy that just rotated their late. A lot of people, well, he dunked on him. No, not really. Baines rotated late. Let's call it rotated late. You shouldn't have jumped. Did he get dunked on? Really, when I looked at that play, necessarily Blake Griffin actually is dunking the ball, and he actually flew by Baines. He really didn't dunk on him. So people need to open their eyes and relook at that play, because that's not a facial in my opinion. And yeah, it looked like it was horrible on TV, but when I watched it again, Baines was on the side of Griffin. He really didn't dunk over him, like his entire body. Same thing like the way he won that dunk contest in 2008, or that one.
2011.
I forgot what year it was. 11, yeah. When he jumped over a hood of a car. A hood of a car? A hood of a car? He may as well just jumped over an old lady on her scooter. That's not top 10 worthy. Now, even that, I wasn't impressed. And like I said, had he dunked over an SUV, I would have been impressed. But the hood of a small car, most kids in the neighborhood could do that.
Exactly. Either if they're just jumping off of their feet, or even a trampoline.
I've seen people with athleticism that could have done the same thing. And for a professional NBA player to do that, to win a dunk contest, is kind of lame. It's kind of almost embarrassing that he won a dunk contest jumping over a hood of a car. Now, I could understand if he jumped over the whole car. Then, okay. The hood of a car? Like I said, you may as well have dunked over an old lady on her scooter with a bag of groceries.
Well, they thought it was amazing, but they still made it a highlight, because any of the littlest things like that that ESPN watches, it interests them in the most dumbest way ever. It's ridiculous. It's
It is.
All right, Thomas. Well, I guess all we got to do now. This game one is behind us. It's over, done with. So now it's time to move on and get ready for game two of the 2015 NBA Western Conference quarterfinals. So, is there before we get up here, is there any message that you want to send to any of those haters or anything to the Spurs fans? Is there any motivation to the Spurs fans or anything you want to tell anyone who'll be watching this video right now?
Well, Spurs fans, we just got to stay motivated. We have to keep our heads up. This series, it's only been one game. The Spurs have plenty of time to turn this thing around, like they've always been able to, and I believe that they will. It's not supposed to be easy, but there are things that the Spurs can correct. As long as they play their game, they'll win this series. As long as they play Spurs back, that's what they have to do. But as far as worried, I'm not worried. I think that it's just it's part of the playoffs. You're not going to sweep everybody. You're not going to win every game. You're going to have some games where you struggle, and then you have bounce back games. That's what makes the playoffs interesting. The fact that a team can always correct their mistakes. And it's like the Spurs they're an experienced team. They know what they're doing. They've been in this situation before. They just got to play better. If they do that, they'll win this series. Spurs in 6. I think they'll still do it in 6. But for those that doubt the Spurs, listen. For the people who call them old, will you give it up already? These guys ain't old. They're rejuvenated. By now, if they were so old, they wouldn't even be in the playoffs. It would be the Lakers struggling. They wouldn't be contending. They wouldn't have won a championship last year. They wouldn't have made the finals the year before that. If these guys were so bad, do you really think people would be actually trying to beat these guys right now? We're not the New York Knicks. We're a very good team. So people calling the Spurs old, those jokes aren't even funny anymore. It's almost like first they were called soft. First they were called dirty. They've been called old. They've been called, all the names in the book. At some point, these people have to realize it doesn't matter what you call them. You can call them whatever you want. But just remember, when they beat your team, don't be salty.
That's exactly what I've been saying. When the Spurs beat your team, hey, don't be complaining, and don't be acting like a grumpy old man saying, "Oh, what the hell? These dark kids." Good God, man. Anyway,
it's like watching those Scooby-Doo episodes. I would have gotten away with it had it not been for you pesky meddling kids.
Oh my God! I swear, these people nowadays, it's just funny. It's pathetic, but it's funny at the same time. All righty, Thomas. Well, I'm at to cut it, but hey, man, thank you so much for being on my show, man. Helping me out with talking sports basketball in this game one and getting everyone motivated. It's always a pleasure having you on here, and we're gonna do our next video for game two. Are you up for that?
I'm up for it.
Cool. Awesome. All right, Spurs fans, remember Tom the Spurs dude's words of wisdom. Keep your heads up. Never keep them down. The Spurs may be down, but they sure as hell ain't out. They still got plenty to improve on. So keep your heads up. Keep positive. Do not let this win bring you down. So, Thomas Spurs dude, and your one and only Mass Spurs Nation E7 will be back here after game two of the 2015 NBA Western Conference quarterfinals with our defending NBA champion, San Antonio Spurs, against the LA Clippers. And until then, guys, go Spurs, go!
Go Spurs, go!